So we're here with Dave Knight from the First Responder Network. We connected because I'm a former first responder. Dave still is a first responder. Police officer where?
In Ontario.
Okay, Ontario. Good answer.
I don't like to be too specific.
Yeah, I understand why.
If I
I'll
can.
ask you about it later.
Yeah.
But first responder, a police officer somewhere in Ontario.
That's it.
Also an avid real estate investor, which is why we connected so well. And I wanted to have him on the show to talk about his success. And we share a lot of similarities because I was a first responder and an investor and a investor-focused realtor all at the same time, and it was kind of a crazy thing, and I really wanted to hear what's going on in Dave's head. So, Dave, I know you got a few properties, but to start off, give me a story about your first property. Everyone screws up or hits it big on their first property. Give me something.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, the last 12 to 18 months, I'd say would be my most lessons learned, just because the market makes you learn those lessons and pivot and whatnot. But I think, first property would be, so I just came out of university. I was able to get a down payment and help get co-signed to get my first property, but I wasn't even, I could barely afford it. I could get the loan, but I didn't have any furniture. I didn't have anything in there. And so I decided to actually rent it out and continue living at home. So I was almost a landlord from day one. And then when I did finally move into it, I got a new job. That's when I got hired. And then with the police service, and my income kind of went down a little bit, and I started house hacking, and guys that I worked with would always live with me. So I always kind of had roommates, and I was house hacking right from day one, which was a huge help. But yeah, I think having a lot of fun with working with the guys and living with me, and it was a bit of a revolving door sometimes, but especially with the divorce rate in our industry. But it was lots of fun. But yeah.
So your first property wasn't on purpose investment property. You bought it for yourself.
Correct. Yep.
But you didn't have any money to kind of sustain it. So you're like, screw it, I'll rent it out.
Yeah. Like, think about all the furniture you need, all the plates, all the, everything, right? Like, and I didn't,
Plates.
everything, it's expensive, right? So I barely had every last penny for my down payment, let alone support myself and not be having too much on layaway with bad boys or something. So
was it a 5% down payment?
No, it was 20%. Actually, sorry, it was 5% down. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
My first was 5% down. I didn't have enough money either.
Yeah, it was fine. Thank God it was 5% down. Yeah. I missed I think there was a time there where it was like 0% down or
what year was this?
3% down. This was 2008.
Oh,
it was like
a year and a bit before me. How old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay, so I'm 38. You were born 83?
Yes.
Okay, I'm born 85. So yeah, right around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can we tell people what location is property?
Yeah. It was in Burlington. It was a townhome. It was one of those, kind of townhouses with no backyard. So
condo
you kind of
town?
backed. Yeah, condo town.
Yep.
Exactly. It was a Brand Haven build. So it was in Burlington and Aldershot there. And I had it all the way up until maybe 4 years ago or so. Yeah.
You sold it?
Yeah, I sold it.
Okay, so that was your first foray into kind of real estate.
That was my first, not even know what I was doing. I just knew real estate was a good investment, and parents always preached that one.
Okay, so I was about to ask that. So your parents were your guiding light, your push to.
I think just being smart, and I think everyone kind of knows real estate is smart.
Not everybody knows.
I shouldn't say that. Yeah, you're right. Not everybody knows that, but I think it was always told to me that was a good starting point to. Get your first property if possible, rather than obviously renting forever.
Yeah.
But there was never discussion of real estate investing. It was just, a good move to get your own property and get yourself settled.
Get in the market kind of
Yes,
thing.
yes,
right.
definitely.
Okay.
But there was never conversations of, I didn't even know you could tap into your equity, and I had to have that whole conversation with my mortgage broker back then. At the time, I remember he said you have X amount of equity. Things were going well after 2008. Things started to ramp up a bit. And he's like, yeah, you can tap into your equity and get another property. I'm like, man, I can barely afford this one. How am I going to afford another one? So there was never that type of discussion in the household growing up.
Yeah, I had zero. Like, I actually didn't tell. I lived with my grandparents. And I didn't tell my grandparents until after I had my fourth property.
Oh, wow.
And I was still living there.
Wow.
And then they were like, what? And then they're like, are they all rented? Are you okay?
Right.
Yep. And then I could see my grandfather just like, okay, back to his pasta.
No,
Just didn't
no
say a
clue.
word.
No
and
clue.
never asked me again.
Well,
which was good because, I mean, bless them, right? They took care of me, and my grandfather passed away now, but like I knew if I had asked their advice beforehand, it was don't do it.
yeah,
you know
it's
what
a different education.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset. You know, like pay everything with cash. You
Yeah.
know, like now it's, you know, you get as much debt on it as possible if it makes sense. You know, leveraging obviously.
I mean? Yeah.
But then again, you come full swing in times like this where people over leverage, right? So you really got to be careful.
Yeah, he came from a different time. I
Yeah.
mean, he had cash stuffed under the big dummy janos of wine he had in his
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy guy.
Totally right.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
My grandmother always tells a story about when they moved. They came to Canada from Italy, and then they were in Montreal for a bit because that's where you land, right?
Mhm.
Off the ship.
Yep.
And he took some job in Red Lake, Ontario, and you don't know where I don't even know where it is.
Yeah.
In a mining,
Mm.
terrible job. So then they came here to Toronto, and the first house they bought was like Islington and Finch area. A lot of Italians were there back in the day. And the realtor, because he had cash, the realtor is like, hey, you can afford to buy 3 or 4 properties here. Because like you could just put 25% down
Right.
and buy 4.
Yes.
And my grandmother was kind of like, hey, at least get an extra one, because my mom was born at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At least they'll have a house for the kid. And he said, no, fuck off. I kicked him out of the house. He thought it was like some slick salesman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 50 years later, she's reminding him about that.
Yeah. How times have changed.
Yeah.
You know, I think just the education and having the conversation, you know, it's so true. Like the people you have the 5 people that surround you the most, right? You kind of, you feed off that. So if no one's having those kind of conversations, you don't really realize different things are possible.
Yeah. How's that? That reminds me of a question. How is that in the police service? Like I know in the fire hall we're around the table and there's like the most ridiculous personalities you can think of.
Yeah.
What do the guys think?
It's a bit taboo to be actually having the conversation about your finances. You know, like it's not, I don't know if fire was the same way. You were fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just policing or it's just people who, you know, work for the city and teachers and kind of have that more conservative approach and security and pension kind of approach. But yeah, it's just, but then once, like obviously I'm a little more loud about it. I got a podcast, I'm all over social media, so there's no secret on my end. And then it attracts people to have that conversation with you versus just a normal general conversation. I think a lot of people look at it and it's a mindset thing and how your thoughts are with, you know, investing and what your mindset is towards money. But in general, you know, if you see someone who's very successful and has multiple properties and you're still working at multiple properties, some people might look at that and be like, what's going on with this guy? Who does he think he is?
Yeah.
You know, or you drive in with a nice car. It's like, well, that guy must be, you know, doing something shady, you know, versus like, man, that guy must work hard. I wonder what he does. And, you know, you're curious. I wonder how he gets those amount of property. I should talk to him. So it's a different approach. And,
Yeah.
you know, so it's your relationship with success or growth in that standpoint. So some people come and talk to you about it, but then some people kind of roll their eyes and each their own. You know?
So I found this a bit taboo too, but for us, it's a bit different because we're hanging around a lot more.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's always banter back and forth. So, hey, what do you do? What do you...
Right.
You know, one guy's construct... You know the way these guys are, right?
Yeah. And I find you guys have more side hustles, you know, like you guys have a little more like the, you know, and you guys get to sleep a little bit more on a little job, but
Yes,
you
sir.
but you guys are a little more, maybe more rested. I don't know, but it's just more, yeah, you just have more side hustles, little jobs on the side.
Yeah.
This guy does decks, or this guy has his, you know, trade license from even before getting hired, and he's still operating on the side. You know, like little stuff like that. Whereas I find it's a little bit, it's not that common in policing.
Yeah, the scheduling is, you know, really helps the firemen and the firefighters kind of have those side jobs. We had a guy who was setting up movie sets on his days off. Like,
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And, but it was still taboo in a sense. And for the same reason you described, because people were just not used to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, what? You do that as electrician, plumber? Like, no, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a mistake about mentioning it early. And then, you know, guys are kind of,
Yeah.
you know, teasing me about it afterward.
Yeah.
And I just stopped. I'm like, you know what? Screw it.
Right. And they'll always find the one, you know, the one reason, like, for example, right now, it's like, oh, interest rates are so high. It's crazy. I would never, or prices drop 20%. It's like, okay, well, prices drop 20%. But look at the whole scheme of things in the last 100 years. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So people will always find a reason not to do it if they're unwilling to do it.
Right. And not everyone's going to do it anyway. But I found things change. I don't know. I'm curious about if the same happened to you. I remember getting a new car, and I had a, right when I still had my first kid, even I had an Audi S5. Nice car. I love that car.
Yeah, that's nice.
I love that car so much. And then when I had the second kid, I had to trade it in. But I used to obviously drive to work, and in the winter we had a haul. It was 3 bays, but we only had one truck at that haul. So in the winter we'd all park our cars in the bay, right? Nice. Keep out of the snow.
Yeah.
So other guys would come and be like, "Oh, look, you, the guy with the fancy car."
Yeah.
And one time this guy wouldn't shut up, right? And I got pissed off. I'm like, "Bro, how much is your new Ford F-150?" "Oh, 60 grand. I'm like, "Buddy, I paid 42,000 for that car.
Right.
What would you rather have?"
Yeah.
And you shut up.
Right.
Right. And at that, and there was 12 other people in the room, and I was a junior guy. He was only like 4 years on the job.
Yeah.
And after that, no one said anything. I think there was a little bit more kind of respect, and they kind of knew I wasn't really a shooter type and trying to show off. I was just living my life the way I want.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't like it, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that run their mouths, and I think it's just it really is true where it just shows their insecurities within themselves, right?
That's right.
It just it echoes. So if they have an issue with it, it's their issue. It's not your issue. So
yeah, and it took a while to kind of figure that out, and then I ended up helping a few firemen buy properties, and they all did really well, all of them.
Love it,
obviously, because the market did well, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I always helped them get into cash flowing properties, and even when
smart
things are
investing.
sideways,
very tactful. Yeah,
they're good, right? So guys have refinanced, paid off their mortgage, and the reputation kind of changed. But do guys kind of seek your help?
Yeah, definitely. I get a lot of DMs, and people will message me or talk to me in private. But we're on parade and stuff. Like, not a lot of people want to talk about it, in front of people. But definitely get a lot of people messaging me, and reaching out for sure. And it gets to a point where it's like, now that I've been doing this for some time, and I got people, in the US and Canada, and it's just kind of, not that there's like, I got millions of followers or anything, but it's enough people where it's like, you got to figure out who you're going to volunteer your time to, and for how long. You just kind of got to dial it back a bit. So that's why I created some, free resources in the podcast, and I kind of get them to kind of point them in the right direction at the very least. Yeah,
that's how we connected. So what exactly do you do at a First Responder Network? I know you have the podcast.
Yep.
What else is going on? Like, how are you helping other first responders?
Yeah, so we got an online bootcamp. It's like an education training platform. So it's about 13 modules, and it literally creates the foundation for anyone who's just getting started. So you learn everything from off-market deals, and I got leading professionals from Canada and the US that come on. So it's not just me teaching. I've been fortunate to have a lot of great people come on. So everything from, like I said, commercial to residential to talking to brokers to real estate agents, other different type of, the BRRRR strategy, what's a wholesaler, what's private money, what's OPM, like all that stuff that really builds a foundation for someone that they can go and make that next step with confidence.
Got it. That's cool. So they can sign up, they can get all these modules.
Yep.
Kind of watch it on their time.
Exactly. Yep. It's an on-demand, it's all video based. So it's 911wealthnetwork.com/bootcamp. And then, and then we do some one-on-one coaching as well. So I keep that kind of down to a minimum. I usually keep about 5 at a time. So I do that, and then just the podcast, and that's pretty much it.
That's good. Well, I think it's a good side hustle or business if you want to call it that. But I think you're really of service to people, and especially the 911 network and the first responders. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I put a lot into it. Like I actually care, So it's I want people to succeed, and it's not just trying to sell someone something. It's a real passion behind it, and I've been, like I said, I've been fortunate to have X amount of years behind me, and people sit across like interviews like this where I would never get to sit in front of someone, especially maybe at their level or their experience, and not only just have them on the podcast, but say, hey, do you want to come on my training program and talk and teach other first responders about how to do this? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. It's like awesome. Because I can't speak about that specific area. I'm not a CPA, so I can't go on there and tell people what to do. So it's people like that I'm fortunate to get on there.
Oh, that's cool, man. Cool. No, that's good. Good for you. Congratulations.
No, thank you.
And we'll put your link in the notes there. Now, okay, so you got your first property, townhouse, Burlington,
Yep.
and this is 2008.
Yeah, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay, so we're 2024. So
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's 15, that's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So what happened since then? Like, where was your progression take you?
Well, I definitely did not dive into the quote unquote, investing education until probably around 2015 or so, 2016, which is when I tapped it. Like I said, I learned about tapping into my my equity into my townhouse. I got a second property, so moved into that one and then sold the old one. And then again, just equity just grew, just natural forced appreciation. I wasn't, creative by any means. And then I started learning. I went to a 3-day workshop in Toronto, and it was almost like the bootcamp style, like what I created. It was like that in a 3-day weekend, just like drinking from a fire hose. And it was just like, whoa, like what is all this stuff?
Which one was it?
It was a Keyspire 3-day.
Keyspire, yes.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
They did a really good job. And I remember the guy who at the front there, Ray, he was the one that was speaking, super smart dude. And it was eye opening. So that was when I really got exposed to that stuff, and I learned about like cash flow and creative financing and just the tip of the iceberg at the end of the day. But so then I didn't join, but I just started listening to podcasts and became a podcast junkie and just really absorbed a lot. And I hired a coach who taught me about student rentals, so that was like my next step in the student rentals. And then after that, what did I get into? I got into single family conversions into 3 or 4 units.
Nice.
So we got into that in the Hamilton area.
Yep.
So
You did a few of those?
yeah, I did a handful of those, about 4 or 5 of those. And those are larger projects. Those would take about a year.
Yeah.
About $300K budget for each one. So it was a lot. And then, so we focused on that. So rather than the burr, I was flipping at the end because the market was just going crazy and the returns were great.
So you were selling them?
I was selling them, to other investors.
Yep.
So, in hindsight, would it be better to keep them? Probably. But at the end of the day, the market was pretty flush at the time. So I was doing that all the way up until as of recently. We just finished our last, early in the year, we finished all our projects. We had 5 on the go at one point. Of different things. I had single family flips and other projects as well. But as far as the multifamily conversions go, and then just right now, obviously everything's pivoted and switched and rates and market. So what was making sense before isn't making sense now, obviously with financing and everything. So now I'm looking at, not looking at, actually tomorrow I'm going to Barrie to look at some opportunities, but some 8 to 10 unit new development stuff. So that's kind of where I'm pivoting now into the new development.
So some development stuff.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. That's the next area of focus.
Yeah. That's my kind of wheelhouse right now too.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I wanted to speak with you about that. I know you're doing some stuff it was Niagara. Did you do some stuff?
Yeah. Our first development was in Niagara, and that's kind of where I ended up building all the relationships. So pretty much everything I've been doing is in Niagara. And I'm developing a 10-unit building right now.
Nice.
Another 9-unit project, which is basically 3 triplexes.
Okay. Is that infill, like from the ground up, or was it existing adding on to?
No, from the ground up.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And then another one that's 4 triplexes actually. So 12 units total.
Love it.
And another one that's bigger, that's 26 townhouses. That's a traditional development. We're going to build it and sell it. Stuff like that. So, and then I got a couple of people looking for some bigger stuff. And they want me to be a part of it. I just can't find anything right now.
Right.
It's, crickets out there.
Yeah. It's crickets as far as opportunity or investors, or what do you mean?
No, well, I mean, there's always money on the sidelines for good deals. I've never had a good deal that couldn't find money.
Right.
Whether it was my own or someone else's, right? But just the opportunities, I'm not seeing them.
Yeah. I've been looking at stuff that so Bill 23 came out, as you know, this year. So there's a lot of red tape that was cut. All this stuff's newer to me. So the last year I've been kind of really focusing on like what direction am I going to go? And I looked at a number of things, and I still like there's tons of opportunity everywhere depending on what direction you go. But this is just the route I'm going. But so Bill 23, they came out, anything 10 units and under in Ontario, as you know, they bypass the site plan approval.
Yeah.
So that alone, talking to people of how long that process used to take, how much capital that used to take, and getting from, well, yeah, I mean, you would know, right? Getting from, from closing to shovel in the ground, obviously it took a lot of time. So just getting shovel in the ground is obviously that much quicker. The commercial financing, CMHC, that type of opportunities with the MLI Select programs. So with the amortization, the financing, and finding zoning in certain markets that already allow for that type of density, so you're not having to go through a zoning change, so you can really get shovel in the ground in like 6 months.
Yeah.
Or a few months, depending on where you go.
The Bill 23 thing is working. I'm using that on both the projects that are all triplexes.
Yeah.
And it worked to our favor. And the first one in Welland, the city of Welland was very quick to uptake the new rules, whereas St. Catharines was not. I asked them right away, and they're like, this and all that, and
I've heard a lot about St. Catharines being like, they're kind of dragging their feet on a lot of things.
They do, places like Thorold are even worse. And that's not to say anything bad about the city. It's just the planning staff and what they have going on. Now recently, so that was supposed to be 3 duplexes and then a triplex, so 9 units. So I had a call with them, like, hey guys and gals,
all on one lot.
All on one lot.
Yeah.
All on one lot, and well, it would have been severed,
right?
But it came from one big lot.
Okay.
So infill. And I was like, hey guys, like, look, the numbers don't work here anymore.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to change development. I'm gonna keep the ugly structure that's on there now, and I'll sever off the back portion. Or I'm going to turn these duplexes into condos and sell them off. And I don't think that fits with your overall plan of wanting to make sustainability.
For sure.
So this Bill 23 thing's here. You're trying to reduce your parking to 0.5 spots per unit. Why can't we just go to 3 units per? And they had a little discussion. They're like, okay, we'll let you do it.
Perfect.
They just want a variance for parking because I can only do 2 parking spots per.
Yeah.
But I have lots of street parking.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it. So I'm going to go to 12 units now. 3 triplexes. So the point I'm trying to make is you gotta, with this Bill 23, it's not locked and loaded. Like, you're gonna have to argue with these people no matter what.
Totally.
And if you don't have a good planner on your back or in your pocket, I mean, better get one quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a true statement. I know I was talking to a construction manager, and he was doing stuff a little more rural, and they were doing a larger stuff. Like, I'm not into this, but I think it was like 200 units or 150 units or something. But it got approved in like 8 months. They were at shovels in the ground for this massive development, because everyone in the office, there was like one guy and he wore all the same hats, for everything. So it was the planner, developer, the permit guy. And it was just like, wow, and I know people are waiting years, like literally years for something similar in different cities. So it depends on where you go.
Yeah. Sometimes that's how it goes. Like our first one in Fonthill, that took 1.5 years of planning.
Yeah.
But I mean, we took a 1.1 acre piece of land and turned it into 31 lots.
That's amazing.
So with that kind of density, it took some time to kind of get through, but it was worth it. There was an ROI for the investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna build a semi and take a year and forget it, I ain't doing it. Right?
I think kind of getting exposed, as an investor, the more you do, you grow and you learn, and you develop as time goes on. And I think learning more about this space, the commercial space particularly, but also just land value, zoning, and kind of coming from somewhere where it was a large single family home or legal duplex, whatever the case may be, and you're trying to maximize that square footage, but you're obviously limited. Whereas like you start finding some land, you can get some real good opportunities on some land, and you can sever X amount of times and get X amount of units on each land, and you're multiplying the value and the highest and best use so much easier than being limited to what I was doing before.
That's what I was about to say. It's all about highest and best use. Like the for what you were doing, converting a big Victorian home in Hamilton to 3 or 4 units, it's the same thing.
Right.
You're just doing it on a piece of land.
Yes.
It's the market shifted, and the money's going to where it's going to be treated the best. Yeah. Just like you would too.
It's a little cleaner. Like it's a little bit more predictable. Like the one thing I found with especially older homes, like in Hamilton, you open,
Oh,
you expect something, and then you open the wall, and you got something else, and you're like, I was not anticipating this. This is not, I was not ready. But yeah, so it is one of those things that you just learn and you find what's working.
Yeah.
So
the surprises really, they don't end. I think the surprises in development, they come in when you're on the development process. They come in delays in time, right? Rather than mold behind the wall,
right?
And then the construction stuff, what used to be more predictable has become less predictable lately, especially with costs going wild. Fair enough. Yeah. Like when we did Font Hill, it was in the 2020, 2021 range. And our lumber costs went up $118,000.
That's wild. Yeah, that's an expensive line item when you're not expecting,
right? So that's the part that becomes unpredictable. Trades were kind of overcharging now, now it's different. Now things have slowed right down. We have trades calling like, "Hey, you busy in May?"
Yeah, there's definitely less investors. On the side of things,
everything we overpaid for is going to come back on the next one. Yeah. So, if you're a contractor out there, don't take advantage of the developers.
Don't take advantage of us.
No,
everything comes around.
But it does make sense. Like we're in desperate need for housing and rental housing. Yeah, like this is just not arguable anymore. No, we've been saying it for a decade, but anyway,
even more so lately. With all the
Correct. And on top of that, it's quality rental housing. Mm-hmm. So if the numbers work, there's nothing wrong with getting an old crappy apartment building and turning it over. Mm-hmm. But when developing something brand new is the same money and the same or better return, why would I do it?
Right.
Why would I?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And especially, like you kind of hit it on the head, but especially with the incentives right now, with the commercial financing, you get 95% loan to cost if you can qualify. Where are you going to get 5% in on a multi-million-dollar investment?
Yes, we're doing a deal like that right now, and if people don't understand what that means, is CMHC, Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, they have a program called MLI. Don't ask me what it stands for right now, but it's an incentive to develop multifamily, and what they'll do is give you 95% loan according to cost. So 95% of the landing cost. So if your land is $100,000 and your cost is $900,000 to build, that's $1 million. Yeah, they will give you a loan at the end for $950,000, which means you're only in for 5% down.
Right.
Right.
Now, also just add in there, people get excited because sometimes they think loan to value. And that's obviously not the case. So loan to value. So well, no, you said it right, but it's just some people, I even thought that to be, I'm like, are you kidding me? I get 95% loan to value. But it's just one of those things where once you're complete, I'm getting in the weeds a little bit here, but once you complete those projects, you can have significant amount of equity in that property, which is nice and reassurance, especially for you and your investors, but you can't necessarily tap into that. No. I mean, you can, there are ways, but as far as CMHC is concerned, it's loan to cost.
Yeah, but that's still okay. It's okay for me to have 5% down in a project. It's nothing.
Oh, nothing.
I mean, talking about $1 million property
and brand new.
Yeah, or in our case, that 10 unit on what I'm talking about, like it's probably the all-in cost is 2.2, right? So it's costing about $220,000 with land and building.
Wow.
Right?
Amazing.
And then we'll get super premium rents, super efficient. Yeah. And everyone's got their own laundry, their own heating system, parking, beautiful, everything. Yeah. And then the loan to cost will come in. And even at the higher interest rate now, which very likely is going to decrease, yes, it's still cash flows if we were finished today.
Perfect.
So if it comes down, we're laughing even more, and we only got 5% in. Yeah. Like, how does that not?
And were you able to get 100 points on that one? So you're able to get 50 years AM?
Yeah, it will be 100
close
points.
To anyway.
Yeah, for those who don't understand, so they to qualify for the MLI, you have to have an affordability factor in your units. So a certain percentage of the units need to be a certain percentage under CMHC's market rent to qualify, or you can qualify for under energy efficiency. So if your building is super energy efficient and you meet all those check marks, they'll give you this 95% loan to cost. Right?
Yeah.
And we're going after the what's it called?
Efficiency?
Energy efficiency.
Yeah, that seems to be the easiest one. I shouldn't say easier. It's the path of least resistance.
Correct.
Especially from when you're going from the ground up. And you can mix and match it too, I know, to get to those points as well.
Yeah, whatever ways you need to do it, right?
Yeah.
Every deal is a little bit different, but it works. So we're probably going to do that on the other one if we build it. I may sell some of these smaller developments that I'm talking about, because you'll find that, like, if you get something up in Barrie or whatever, and you do the development and you get the severance, you're going to build up some equity.
Yes.
And if another deal comes along that's really good and it's bigger, you're like, okay, well, trade this one for.
And that's something that I actually really enjoy too, is almost like flipping the paper. You know, if you can get something that's already zoned and you get it built, and it's obviously site plan approvals bypassed, but you can get your building permits and you can sell that with the building permits. There's a lot of value there that can be,
that's what we're doing with this 10 unit. We're going to get it to right before building permits. We want to apply for it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then it'll be building permit ready instead of site plan approved.
It's perfect. And that's a lot of value for somebody, because a lot of people don't know the process or even want to deal with the process.
Yeah, you just have to leave some skin in the game for the next person. They need to have a pot of gold also.
Yeah.
So the way we do it is we model it from beginning to completion. And we're exiting here, but we have to leave some juice in it for the next person, or else it's not really a good deal, right? Yeah. So if I can walk in and spend X dollars and build tomorrow, and then retake my equity, why wouldn't I want to do that?
And they can carry on with the CMHC Select program too, right?
Correct.
So there's definitely some good opportunities there, and a little bit more predictable. That was the one thing in complete transparency is what hurt me the last 12 months was the residential, the refis weren't coming in. You know, you're only halfway done your project, and even though it's on comps, that's what's hurting you versus the commercial space. It has a lot more. I mean, obviously cap rates and rates have an effect on it, but you have a little bit more play on that NOI, right? Right. Yeah.
I think you're going to do well on these projects no matter what, as soon as the market turns. I think it's going to, on everyone's residential type assets under 4 units. I mean, everything's been delayed with
everything.
Refund.
Yeah. It is what it is. You got to hold on, and it's all part of the market, right?
So what do you think, just in your own best thoughts, what do you think the market's going to do this year?
I don't know. I got mixed. I don't think, I think everyone's getting a little too excited, a little too early. I think, they're making claims and comments with the Bank of Canada and, down the States too, with the Fed, that they're lowering rates X amount. I'm being overly conservative. I'm not anticipating anything. I think flatlining would be nice for a little while. But I also think there's a lot of people struggling. So there's like this side of the equation where people are on the sidelines and they're waiting to jump in, and then you got other people on the other side of the sidelines that are having real difficulty. So I don't know. There's so much demand and pumped up for housing, but a part of me thinks that there's going to be a lot of people coming on the market too. Like it's going to be a little saturated in the spring. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's a hard one to predict because it's in a way this is an unprecedented time. It's not like there's been something similar to this in history, right?
Yeah.
So I think the American side is going to play a lot.
Yes,
because we're just,
and it's election year. There's always a little chaoticness going on, and I think we're going to have one too. So.
Oh my God!
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's some change up in there, but
usually there's rates come down in an election year because the sitting president wants to make it rosier. Yeah. Right. They want money flush into the market. Yeah. Their U.S.'s interest payments on their own debt just crossed $1 trillion a year.
I know, it's wild.
So they're hitting that inflection point where all the inflation they created, they're just about to start paying the bill. Yeah. And if rates stay.
Yes.
So that's another move to that why people are predicting rates could come down.
Yeah.
On our side, the government makes so much money on new development. Actually, on a typical Toronto condo building, the government makes more money than the developer. I don't think people actually realize
just because
this.
all the fees
Between
and the
HST
taxes. Yeah.
and all the taxes involved. I'll send it to you after.
Yeah.
Like on a typical $750,000 condo, there's about $140,000 in taxes.
Wild.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's literally the government's making more money than the developer.
Yeah.
So when anyone screams that the developer is greedy or anything like that,
Yeah.
their margin is between 7 and 13%. That's it.
Yeah.
Under that, they don't
Yes.
build,
Right.
as you can see.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if you're wondering why they're not building,
It's
because the
of that.
margin's low.
Yeah.
Right? So that being said, they desperately need that income stream. It is a ridiculous income stream for the government, never mind for developers.
Yeah.
Right? And with all this new immigration they want and has come in, there's not enough housing.
Yes.
So they get housing for new immigrants, and B, they get a huge chunk of money.
Yeah.
So do they really want that to go away? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's a question of when does it come back?
And I was listening to, some higher end guys down in the States too, as far as the building goes, and a lot of the stuff is very similar up here, but they, because of this delay, there's some things that are just finishing now, but not a lot are starting now. So a lot were waiting, and so that pause in the market of being built, especially is in a lull. So it's going to take another year to some of these permits and process for these big builders to get started. So there's going to be even more of a squeeze on the supply, and demand issue
As
coming
rates
in,
come down.
coming in the next, still the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But,
Yeah.
No matter what, I think people who are positioned with good assets, especially cash flowing assets, you're good.
Right.
It's not as good as before,
Right.
but you're not getting your kneecaps cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anybody with good assets wins.
Yes.
You know?
And buying right. I think now finally things have eased up where you can actually go out and make some good purchases like below market, where before there was such, multiple offers, and even off market, you got umpteen wholesalers knocking on the same doors, you know what I mean? So it was very difficult to find below market valued pricing, where now I think people are feeling the squeeze and need to sell or want to sell, or even just the ability to negotiate, so so I'm excited about that too. But
Yeah.
I'm finally ready to start pulling the trigger in Q1 here, whereas the last 12 months I was just getting all my ducks in a row, figuring out which direction I was going. Yeah. Oh no, you have to do that for sure.
No, everyone goes through that kind of cycle. Yeah. I mean, in 2021, 2022, I scooped up 3 development deals.
Yeah.
Because they were there.
Yes.
Whereas I'm more of an opportunist at this point. I got a pile of properties. Like another triplex isn't going to make or break me. I'm like, what? It's this price?
Right.
I have to buy it.
Right.
I have to.
Yeah.
And now they're going to pay off.
Yeah.
And now I'm sweating it. I'm like, oh God, hurry up. But you know what I mean? When the times come back, we're set. That's what it's good for.
Yeah, totally.
You got anything going on in south of the border, States, Caribbean, anywhere else?
So we had an Airbnb. It was a new build, off-market deal. That was our first one in the U.S. So we knocked it down and built a 4-bedroom, single family, in Scottsdale. And so we had that running for a few months, and then just saw things changing very quickly. We exited with a profit, but we exited kind of learned a lot in the process. A lot changed from when we first started to when we refinanced at the end, rates, etc. So we found another investor, and we sold it turnkey. So that was a blessing not disguise. It was a blessing, because think about it. You have all that furniture. You're all set up for an Airbnb. I had everything booked for about 2 months in advance. And
It wasn't worth keeping?
So what happened was, because we were anticipating a higher loan to value on the refi. So we were only able to get 65% loan to value. So there was a lot of capital that was locked in there. Yeah. And I really wasn't willing to wait another period of time to access that. And I felt we were in a position to exit with some money in our pocket. And I didn't know where the market was going to go in the next 6 months or 12 months.
Probably a safe play.
Yeah. It was just like, you know what? I learned a lot. I would do the same thing again, a little bit larger. I would do more bedroom count. But, and I met great contractors down there. I went through a couple. It was a huge learning process.
And this is in Scottsdale,
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah.
And why Scottsdale?
I had, so it was we had a couple Airbnbs up here. Had some friends down in the U.S. just networking and whatnot. They were doing Airbnbs, and I just found a great zip code down there where it was working for them. I found an off-market deal, at a good price, and just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
So and I'm a dual citizen, so that's the other thing, is just having like another place that we can go kind of set up shop for. We like Arizona. We have friends there, so that's why we decided Arizona.
So it's kind of a hot spot for you too. Like, you like being down there. And...
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, who doesn't like a place with little palm trees in the winter? So a place to go to. So
absolutely.
So we're still open to Airbnbs. We, my wife Erin, she owns a company, Pinkwall Designs. So they actually design and furnish short-term rentals and boutique hotels. So a lot of their customers are all in the States. So we have that leverage there. So we still have some interest in growing some Airbnbs, but right now, personally, I'm just focused on these multifamily 8 to 10 units.
Got it here.
Yeah, here.
Yeah. Speaking of heading down south, I'm heading away next week for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So
nice. Where are you going?
We're going down in the Caribbean.
Beautiful.
It's not the cold that gets me anymore. I don't know if you saw my ice bath out there.
No, I didn't.
But I'm doing the ice baths. I like them a lot. Very good therapy for me, at least for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not even the snow. I don't even snowboard. It's the no sun. This is what I boiled it down to.
Yeah.
No sun. It just, there's no color outside. Everything's gray.
Yes.
I wake up and my eyes don't even open. Like, I'm like, where?
Yeah. I was having this conversation with Aaron this morning. I'm like, when's the sun gonna come back? Because I think there was like 14 days or something with no sun, and then there was like a sunny day, and I'm like, wow, I just feel so much better just having the sun out.
Yeah.
And I had a horrible cold. I'm like, how am I feeling better with a horrible cold with just a little bit of sun? But it's true. It takes a toll on you for sure.
It bleeds me dry. Like, I feel like it's like what's that? The Superman, like the kryptonite.
Yeah,
you know
the kryptonite.
I mean? You go to the sun and recharge.
I feel yeah. It's that vitamin D lack of.
It's in my DNA. Like, I'm not from here. You know what I mean? I need to have some sun.
Well, my mom was from California. My that side of the family was all from down south. So every time I go there, I'm like, what am I doing up north? Like, how did we end up here? So
yeah, I thought a lot about that, and I don't even want to go into politics, but
yeah.
Like, I almost gone full circle. Like, all this COVID nonsense and governments and communists and liberals and all this nonsense drove me crazy. I went down to Florida 3 different times, almost bought a house and moved.
Yeah.
And it's come full circle. And it's not that I'm back, loving Canada again. I respect the country for what it is.
Yes. Because
this country gave me the opportunity and I took it, and it's done well for me. And I can't, say that I would have had this opportunity anywhere else. Maybe in the U.S.
Yeah.
Where else? Certainly not in Italy.
Yes.
You can't. There's not really much of an economy there, right? So, but things have changed here.
Yeah.
And we got to be real about it. But is it really that much better anywhere else? Like, is the grass 10 shades greener somewhere else? I don't think so.
I think the more, it's hard not to get sucked into it all, especially if you pay somewhat attention to it. And it's true. You're going to have a divide. You're going to have disagreements and ideology disagreements on all sides of the border. I think the biggest thing is just finding your pocket of where you resonate with. And I think in Canada too, we're maybe just I'm getting older too, and I'm more aware of it. Like, maybe it was always there, but I definitely feel people are like more aware of the disconnect.
Yeah, someone said something to me, and I for the first time in a long time, I was speechless.
Yeah.
He said to me, America was born of, how do you say it? Oh, he said to me, America was born of defiance, and Canada was born of compliance.
Yeah, I see that for sure.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Now I understand everything. I think now, at least I used to believe that being in Canada was like North America, Switzerland.
Right.
Yes. There's a war there.
Yes.
I don't care. We're in Canada. There's something. I don't care. We're in now. Forget it.
Right.
So your location now is either an asset to me, is either an asset or a liability. And so moving one to the other doesn't always solve that.
Yeah.
I think you need access, right? So I got my dual citizenship and my whole family and kids in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I got all of Europe. Now we have some connections, and I can move if I want to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And one more, and I'm like, okay, now I'm safe.
Yes. Yeah. You know
Something
what?
happens, go. Something happens there, go. I can move and switch. You can't get me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At the end, 100%. And I think you're smart for realizing that, because I've thought about that too. And same thing with dual citizenship. I know we like Mexico too. There's some opportunity to get land. Yeah, and I think it all just comes back to like your ability to create more control for yourself. So what can you do to put yourself in a better position?
Right.
And that's why it comes full circle, even just at the beginning where we were talking, is like, why are you doing this? Why first responders? And I think, we all rely on that paycheck and the pension. Mm-hmm. But what happens if something happens? And I think, especially up here in Canada, when you suggest that to anyone, probably your own workers, they roll your eyes. You're like, this is like ironclad. You're good. Nothing's ever happened. But if you just look, at the private sector, if you look into south of the border, like there's a lot of first responders and other people with pensions that either went solvent, they were defunded, and, they had to come back to work. So and especially with what you're seeing globally, like anything can be affected. So you just got to do what you can to put yourself in a better position.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone can hate me if you want, I don't care, report me, but OMERS may not be what you think it is. Right. Yeah. Think about what's happened in the last 3 years that you thought would never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now look at this giant there sitting. They almost seem vulnerable to me.
Yeah. And I think and I think 100%. And I don't, and I'm rooting for them. Like I'm always,
Of course. I don't want anyone to get hurt.
No, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like they're in a tough position because things have changed since, the 70s, and even if you look at I have a crazy, they had a webinar years ago and I remember watching it and I was blown away, and it kind of like gave me the more of drive to do a little bit more. And they were showing the pay in to pay out ratio. And I think it was in 70, it was like 8 or 9 to 1. And by 2030, they're expecting 1 to 1. So it's like, how can you sustain that? And it's inevitable. You're going to have more civilians working, doing other jobs. You're going to be shrinking different departments and whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it's a difficult model to sustain.
Right. And I don't think they're trying to blow it all up, but you're right. They need to shift models, but when they shift, inevitably the pension holders are the ones to suffer, right?
Right.
Or you start sacrificing the new people who come in.
Yeah. And they started doing a little more riskier investments to try and make up for that ground. Like they had a difficult time payments there after COVID. But yeah, it's and then inflation kills everything, so it's tough.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be that person, but I the real message is whenever I learned this back in the day from Robert Kiyosaki, like the minute you give control of your finances to somebody else, you just open yourself up for problems.
Yes, yeah.
The more control you take back, the safer you are.
Yeah, and it comes down to self-education too, because I think a lot of people are so scared to have that control. And it's self-education and awareness is everything. So
yeah, and that's why it's really important that people like you have their network. You're teaching people. You got a brotherhood of people that you're legitimately helping. Mm-hmm. We have a massive network too. We got memberships and coaching and mentorship, and the bigger we grow, the more people we help, and the more people understand the message. Right?
Yeah.
It's more important than ever to take care of your future and take control over it. Definitely. Which is why I love real estate assets, because they spit out cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. The paper stuff. I mean, if you're really good at it, great. I saw an interview. What's his name? Oh, Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank now too.
There you go. Speaking of Wolf of Wall Street here, Wolf of Wall Street is my favorite T-shirt. But he just did an interview with Tucker Carlson. He wrote a book. I forget what the book's called. I'll probably read it. And he's talking about investing in stocks. And he's like, basically, there's maybe like 2 or 3 hedge fund managers on earth who can beat the S&P index. If people don't know what the S&P index is, S&P 500 is the 500 biggest companies in America, in the US. And they have an index. And that usually makes around 7 to 10% a year on average, some years more, some years less. and 2 to 3 hedge fund managers can beat that.
Yeah.
He's like, if you rely just on that, you're probably beating 95% of people.
Yeah, and as of right now, I think it's the top 7 is what's holding that whole S&P up.
Yep.
You know, everyone else is struggling big time. So,
Big time.
I mean, it's having those big whales in your. I mean, if I could do it again, if I was like, I always have this conversation, even with my parents. It's like, okay, they have their financial advisor, even my uncles and people I respect, even outside the family that just aren't exposed to real estate. They're excited about their not excited, but they're comfortable with their 5 or 6% or their, returns, and it's secure. But it's like, if you just invest in the S&P 500 and let it sit, the average is, I think it's 8 to 10%. Yeah.
With no fees.
With no fees.
Barely
Exactly.
any,
You're literally compounding.
Yeah.
True compounding.
Yeah,
So anyway, it's just, a lot of people don't even know that.
and it's scary. So I'm glad people like you are teaching. One last question. I think it's important.
Sure.
You have a wife, kids?
Just got married in September, so
No time.
wife now, no kids.
Okay.
We have a dog, so he's our child.
All right, we'll take that. Family, real estate, police officer. How does that whole mix kind of come together?
Well, family first for sure. What was the list there?
Family,
Yeah.
real estate, police officer.
Yeah, definitely in that order. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy work. Like, I actually don't mind going to work every day. It's not like anything like that. I love the opportunity that you can create through other means. Mm-hmm. So I get more excited about stuff outside of work and real estate, and the opportunities within it. But yeah, family's definitely first. And like I said, Erin with her Pink Wall Designs, definitely go check them out. It's fun now to see them flourish. They just had their first year. They just hired their first full-time employee here and got them on payroll. So it's like, it's fun watching her grow. And even though it's not in the same space, we're still, creating together. She's a paramedic, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she's just down to once a week, but, and then doing her side hustle and flourishing that. So we kind of have similar backgrounds and similar interests. And
did you meet her at work?
No, I was at a Chris Stapleton concert.
Oh, really?
And then it was at the bar after. But it was in London, which is where she actually works.
That's cool. That's cool. So any plans for kids?
We're kind of up in the air. I feel like the older I get, the more I kind of want kids. And then but we're kind of, if it happens, it happens. But we don't have, I know friends that got their dates all set out, we're a little more easygoing. We'll see what happens.
I think you should do it. You'd be a good dad.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it'll change you. It'll make you buy some more properties.
Yeah, definitely. Time management would have to dial in a little more.
So. Yeah, you're telling me. So, Dave, thanks for coming on. Any last message you want to leave for anyone?
Man, just I think just force yourself to learn a little bit more. I think get yourself surrounded by people who are thinking differently, and just educate yourself. I think I found starting in this journey, it was just real estate, but it kind of opens your mind to, not just financial growth, but personal growth, relationship growth, and it's a real journey, and that's kind of stems from just starting to have the conversation.
Good.
So
good for you, man.
Yeah.
Good for you, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I got a gift for you.
Oh, saw that sitting there. A money tree.
Yes, sir.
Love it. We could all use that in the new year, right?
Yeah.
At any
now you
time.
got a dog and a money tree to take care of.
Hey, when he's eating raw food, sometimes you need the money tree.
Yeah, take care of that thing, because apparently they're sold out everywhere.
Yeah, I heard.
And I hope it brings you lots of money and luck in the future, man.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah.
And thanks again.
Pleasure, man.